Hi, those who know me just don't listen. Those who don't, I'm Frank. I'm a freelance journalist for as long as 25 years in the digital sphere. And I was the first person to write a book on user experience in German, which is not really a credit, but it's the case. And so that's why I'm standing here. Maybe I can try to ask the one or the other critical question to our panelists. And we have a great topic, as I think, but it's really a hard topic. We sat here for 3/4 of an hour and tried to find out where our discussion line is. And we needed to arrange for the first 10 minutes to really find out where that is. And exactly that is what we will be talking about, how we can find a way to communicate within the different disciplines. We are here at Webinale, and Webinale claims to be the holistic web conference, so we try to bring all the people together, brands, marketers, coders, developers, designers, and whatever I missed out right now. HR people a lot these days, okay, they still. And so this is a topic we have to have here on stage. I want to start with a small anecdote I experienced myself. It was, I think, 10, 12 years ago. I worked for, or I was supposed to work for a very big publishing house, I think one of the biggest in Germany. And it was about their launch of editorial apps, and they did really an effort. They spent tons of money on doing really good content in apps. And I came to the website and I was supposed to consult that a bit and said, well, why don't you advertise for these apps? Why don't you show us that there are apps? Even if a client comes with, or a customer, a user comes with an iPhone or an iPad, you could play out that there is an app for you. And I had on the right-hand side, there was the IT guy, and on the left-hand side, there was the editor-in-chief. And the IT guy was sitting like that and said, this is impossible. I said, what do you mean by impossible? You don't have the processes for, or what? No, that's not supposed to be in our code. I mean, what? Like, it's an overlay over the page, maybe? Something like a div container, you all know what that is? I said, yes, we don't have the real estate on the site. I said, you don't need real estate. You need 2 lines of JavaScript code to put in there, and I can write them down for you right now. I was really angry then, because he tried to hold the other side of the same company totally stupid. I found out in the later, I didn't do that project. I stepped out the room after coffee break and said, bye-bye, I'm off. I found out why that was so. It was so because the IT department was in charge of the whole website and even AdSense at that time. So that was in the early stage where the publishing houses tried to make money online, and the only money came from Google and it came from AdSense. And so the IT department was in charge of selling the editorial content. And they didn't want the editors to do that themselves, to develop new formats like native advertising, whatever we have here right now. So it was a fight of power within that house. They had different goals, even if they worked in the same company. And with the vehicle of technique, they tried to speak different languages and not to inform or to disinform each other. And I encountered that in a couple of editorial works I did. The last one was, and this is the end of my first statement, at the beginning of this year, I asked a marketer of a company from Hamburg. It's like a classical Mittelstand company, but pretty successful. And he ranted on his media agency, which is the biggest media agency in Germany. And he said explicitly, the year with that company, I don't name it, you can look it up, was a wasted year. And we are speaking of 3-digit million budget. And I asked him, do you really want me to write that in the magazine and to print it? And he said, if you don't write that sentence, I will not give you free the other quotes. I asked the agency, I asked them, what happened? Everything went wrong. Can you tell me your side? So we want to have a balance in that story. they couldn't answer. They just answered very generically like, yeah, we always want the best for our customers and whatever, nothing else. To this certain case, they couldn't answer, so something went awfully wrong. And that's what we will be discussing. We'll try to, if you have questions, we'll try to answer them a bit, but it is a very broad topic, so we need to try to stay on topic up, but if you have really answers that's burning your souls, just try to ask. The people you see here. We start with Maria. You already know her because she had the last talk before the break and she already talked about the customers from hell. We'll continue on that. Maria is a freelance web designer from Serbia. Please welcome her with a big hand. On the far right from your side is Fionn Kienzle. He's managing partner by Succedo, at Succedo, it's in German here, at Succedo, and he's specialized on content marketing. Next to him, I think most of you know him, it's Stefan Priebsch. He's the principal consultant of the PHP consulting company, and he has an applause. And close to me is one of the fastest speaking marketers out there, Jens Voldrat, former telecom worker, but now with his second agency, Get Traction, multiple founder and search engine specialist. So I will not start with the same question we started before because it led us in the wrong direction. Maria, in your daily work with the clients, you work directly with brands and with companies that you would develop websites for. Can you explain them if in their briefing something is wrong? How do you do that? Does that happen?
It can happen at the very start. But again, as I said in my talk, I need a good communication. I just have to have a clear brief of what they want. If I find something rather confusing, I will ask them twice, 3 times, 5 times, at the same day or tomorrow. I'm going to ask them the questions, the real question, what I have to ask them, and then I will start with the project. And then during the work, again, I'm asking them, is this okay? Designing in the browser again. This is fine. And they say, okay, change this, change that. So collaboration first. And I don't have any problems to ask them the questions.
As we speak of the design of websites, companies have their design code, their corporate identity, whatever. Do you find things in there that feel wrong for web design that you cannot realize, with a pure consciousness?
Well, one of the latest projects was the client wanted, it was a financial company, the financial loans, and the client wanted $1 to put in a logo. Or a compass. So that was, no, I'm just not doing that. It was better to create some typography, nice typography as the logo, and then to put it to be clear and simple, and to create a website with the interesting images, the colors that are financial blue, one dark blue, or something that the client wanted, and that was then fine. But I explained to him rather in a cultural, in a positive way, not saying this is wrong, but it can be created in some other way. Please just let me try to create it in my way, and then we'll see from there. So.
And how do you argue for your way? How do you know it's better?
Because they hired you. That's why they know you're doing that better than they do. Definitely. You write them down in an email, please, okay, maybe you like the $1, but it's not going to attract people. You know, you're creating a financial service for loans. They see the dollars, they say, oh no. Just like you need some kind of aesthetics, some simplicity, some business-oriented website individuals. You created you write down the culture, an email with full of, like, in a good manner, a culture email. Yeah, so I don't want to, I'm not fighting with them. I'm just saying in beautiful words via email.
And if they still say no?
No, they cannot say.
They cannot?
No. Because they will soon find out that I'm creating a website for them, then they will do that. I don't know anything about the financial loans, so they don't know anything about the web, so they can just suggest. That's the only thing that they can do. It's up to you to choose what is appropriate in visuals. that kind of visual aesthetic. I think with regard to visual aesthetic, we'll have a minimalistic design approach. Think about that, not about the latest trends, but that minimalism. That is a classic concept. That is not a trend.
Jens, if Maria says the client doesn't know anything about the web, isn't that the ideal situation for you?
No, that's too bad. That's too bad. They need a little bit knowing. Also, I have to apologize. My English is more hessisch than English. You have to deal with it. Sorry. So they need a little bit knowledge about their customers, and for me, often our clients don't know their customers. Also we had a lot of B2B clients.
Customers in terms of end users.
In B2B business.
Yeah.
Also, you have a website. There's a lot of we have this feature and this feature and this feature, and it's like, okay, what problem do you solve with this feature? Yes, it's a cool feature. Yeah, okay, but what is the problem? Who needs this? No answer. So we have to make it in this way. We are the marketing, and our boss say we have to make it. Okay, who
Bring
is
me your boss.
customer? Exactly. So that's often the problem, that no one knows who is the customer or what is the purpose of the website. Would they only communicate, or would they get emails, newsletter subscriptions, or would they have leads or whatever? What is the purpose? Then Google, there's a small button, contact. Small, white, you have no chance to find it, and say, okay, if this is a purpose, why it's not red and above?
I think white on white is classical SEO.
No. For SEO, we are totally in the hand of the searcher, because he search with his words and his mindset, and then have to speak his speech. His language. And that's really hard for old school marketeers, because they talk in their language. And we have mismatch. So I study library science, okay? And then I get this in this SEO topic and say, wow, it's my profession. Because people come in the library and have no clue how to search for a book. And I have to connect them to the language from the book, to the language from the people that stand there and searching for the right book. And that's exact the same task.
So it's rather, for you, it's rather a black and white story. So there are really truths. So if a client has a, let's say, wrong approach, you can prove him wrong. You can say, okay, my data shows you it's better to do it differently.
In a little bit, we try to build some smaller solutions to prove our way of thinking, and normally it functions. But you can go in and say you make everything wrong. Then the talk is over. So
you don't make anything wrong?
No. We go to the customer and say, like me, we have a different kind of approach. Let us testing, and normally our tests are more successful than everything what they do before. And yes, then you have to trust, and then you can change.
Okay.
But always with a small.
Stefan, if we go a bit further away from, let's say, the customer, the end user in that, because if we talk about developing what kind of functionality an app or whatever there is, maybe the clients, like the brands, still even have less a clue than talking about Google. So the briefings could be more abstract, like this is our business goal, what we want to achieve, and the rest is your job.
Was that already a question for me? Because I didn't.
No,
really
it was
catch
sort
the
of a
question.
small starter. So if you could, exaggerate on that. The question is, what do you do? No, do you face the same problems? Do you face the problems that you have briefings that don't fit what you think should be done?
So usually, in my world, usually we already have a solution in place. There is an existing solution. There is a solution that is being built as part of an ongoing project. And if everybody is happy, consultants usually don't get called in, right? So there is some kinds of problems or perceived problems. So that's when you get in, and then you have to look at, what are you doing and why are you doing that? And you tend to start asking a lot of seemingly stupid questions to try to get to the bottom line. And then technically everybody does it wrong.
How?
I mean, it's typical. If you ask any developer, look at somebody else's code, they will say, well, I would have done that differently, so it's wrong in a way, but not really, because it's different. So we have to kind of differentiate between maybe I would have done that differently, but I guess for you guys it works, right? So maybe I can give you some advice in some areas. You should do this differently, or I can add my know-how to areas where they have no clue what to do. Mm-hmm. So rather than going in and saying, hey, you're doing everything wrong, let's start from scratch, same thing that he said, well, talk is over pretty soon. It's like, okay, let's try to pick up from where you are, because rarely we get to like start greenfield and ignore all the history that we have, whether that's a project or whether that's like the whole IT ecosystem of the company. Right,
but your role as a consultant is like a moderator. You're talking to the clients on their goals, and then you brief the teams you work with on what to do. Do you bring those two together? Is it necessary to bring those two together? That the developer understands the deep idea of the goals of the customer?
Of course. That's one of the key success factors in my experience, and it's not done enough. For some companies it's actually difficult, because if you're a product company building a product for a market where you have some people in the company that know the market, or maybe they think they know the market, so they have an idea and they gonna say, okay, that's the direction we need to go. And once the product gets launched, the market will kind of tell in a very harsh way sometimes, no, that's not what we want, right? So that's very different from creating something and actually collaborating with the people using the product. Mm-hmm. In a traditional product generation cycle, you don't often get to do that. But in that's the business, that's the software our business works with scenario. Right. You have to absolutely get down on the floor and talk to the people, because you will realize that they don't want any of that fancy bullshit the developers keep talking about. They want the focus to be on that field when they open the screen, because it really bothers them that they have to grab the mouse and click there every single time they open that screen. And I've seen companies where these issues were never recorded because the people had learned that, well, it doesn't make sense. If I open up a Jira ticket, it's going to be refined and it's not going to be prioritized, and nobody's ever going to do that. And once a team of developers got down to the floor and said, so guys, let's talk. What's bothering you? And they made those small fixes. It took them like a week. Mm-hmm. They got a thank you letter.
Handwritten.
Carbon copy to the CEO. Wow. Ultimately, finally, development has done something useful for us.
I don't want to know how the letters before were, but then... Fionn, let's take on that one. Content marketing is a totally different topic in that, because you have to understand the customer, like the brands, intrinsically. Right. Otherwise, you can't make good content.
Exactly. So it's sort of like a luxury that we have, that we are talking from the user perspective right from the beginning. We're talking about reach. We have sort of measurable data. That's sort of like a luxury situation, because as a web developer, sometimes you don't have that information. We get measured by that information, and that's why we start thinking that way right from the beginning. So, one of the questions that we ask towards sort of like the IT specialists, the web developers, is how you can integrate the user into the development right from the beginning. And something we discussed earlier was you can use user stories. Great. And then Jens, and it was kind of funny because Jens went like, no, user stories get abused. And the reason user stories get abused is that everybody is thinking about solutions. So you try to come up with the user stories, and they think about some feature that they want. And that's a solution, but they don't talk about the problem. And that's something that happens in content marketing as well. They talk a lot about the solutions, particularly on the client side. They get they sort of fall in love with their solutions, but they don't talk about problems. And problems are a way of getting to the point of it, of getting to the point. And for example, I give you a reach example. For example, we had one company where they said, okay, here are the topics that we want to promote. And we said, no, we're not going to take those topics. We have our topics. And said, you have your topics? Can you do that? Yes, actually, they're not our topics, but they're the topics that people search for on Google. And these are, and Google determines the topics that we should write about, because that's the way to get reach. And reach times, conversions is revenue.
Let me go one step back, because Maria said a very interesting thing. She said that the client, the one who signs the contract, is the same person then she communicates to, and this is the guy that gives trust into her work. With you, it could be different. It could be people from the C-level sign the contract and says, okay, a content agency XYZ, you go there and make our content. Then you have to do with the junior marketer in his division, and he might have different goals. He might he wants to shine before in front of his CMO, we have this great Snapchat campaign or whatever. And does that happen? You
yes.
see different goals within the company?
Yes, there are definitely different goals, and we're not talking the same language. And we, of course, as a content marketer, you're sort of you're challenged in that you use a lot of buzzwords, because that's just how it works. And then we don't speak the same language. And then, for example, you have a person responsible for content marketing, and they talk about reach in a totally different way, because they talk about print reach and TV reach, and these are types of reach that you typically have a hard time measuring, and then it's all about translating that to them, and then it's also a question: are they even interested in doing that? The company is interested because they want to get online reach, but are they interested in that? Because they're suddenly limited in their role, because they don't know anything about that. And they notice that you, as a sort of consultant or a company coming from outside, you have a lot of knowledge and you have a lot of power. That can be quite an uncomfortable situation. And suddenly, then, there are a bunch of humans sitting in the same room, and you have to have empathy. You have to have. You're talking about technology, you're talking about reach, you're talking about revenue, but at the end of the day, you need to have empathy to get to a point and to develop a constructive dialogue.
But Jens, it's exactly the same what could happen to you. If the marketer comes to you and says, okay, I have the idea, we focus on certain content topics and do an SEO campaign in that, or SEO is no campaign, it's ongoing, of course, I learned that. And if you play it back and say, you have the wrong keywords. You don't see what the user wants. You prove the marketer wrong, which could be harmful to him. How do you deal with that? Is that a problem? Or is a relation you can build so open that both can see at even their own mistakes?
You have to prove that you are right. You can't go in and say you make it wrong. In no way. So you have to find a small piece of the website. Normally we have for one client a small piece about a special kind of information, but it was a technically crap, so Google can't understand it. Like this, you have all these nice shopware things. Pay they a lot, or can I be a little bit harm to them? Okay. Shopware has this really cool topic pages. You know this? Topic pages, you can build all these things. They are really cool. They have a cool UX, and I like this kind. But they're totally, the content is in JavaScript container. I have no idea why someone builds this kind of crap. Okay? Because Google can't read it. And we had a lot of smaller customers that come and say, we don't perform in Google. I say, yes, you have to build your shop new. What? We built it yesterday. We pay $20,000 for this fucking shop. It's like, yes. but no, you need 20,000 more bucks. Sorry. There's no way. And I don't understand it because it looks so cool and you can build it without this all the JavaScript crap. There's no reason for this. But back to the story. We take this part, we make it wide, and then we change a little bit the content, but only a little bit. And after 6 months, it was the best performing part of the web page. Mm-hmm. And then comes a question from the other departments, how can we have the same success? Mm-hmm. So success leads to success.
Well, it's like getting the foot into the door.
Exactly.
How is that, Maria, with you? I think in design, whatever we call it, success is not that easy to measure.
Success is only if the client is happy, and I'm happy too. So, with regard to that, if we're both
is there a situation where the client is happy, you're not happy, but you take the money?
Of course. It depends. What is the budget? I mean, there are some, yeah, but it depends on the budget.
Right.
The budget in Serbia is different from the budget in Germany. I don't want to tell how much is that. So when you're working, that's why I work with international clients. They're more realistic to that. Our clients are not. So with regard to design, it's if the both sides are happy, then that's great. But I created so many websites that the client ruined. With everything, you know, they just add, remove, and then they ask me, is this okay? I say, no, I don't want to put anywhere, so just do it. I mean, because it happens. Mm-hmm. Or you're updating something, you're adding maybe some YouTube video, because of the CEO, they want that coffee shop to be more visited, and you're doing something, and that video is not showing on Safari. But it's not working in Safari already, and it's not your mistake, it's the mistake in Safari. They're not asking us anything. They just don't want to solve the problems. It's not all about us. It's about the browsers. They don't want to solve the problems, for example, for the video. And they say, I don't see this video in Safari, but I see it on 10 more devices. I say, that's fine. The clients have an option, because with responsive design, you can see on so many devices. If they don't see on one, they will see on 5 more, some part. Mm-hmm. So I don't find it rather a harder thing, like they can do it on this device, that device, they don't see on the third. With me, that's completely fine.
Okay.
Some clients are good, some are bad. Clients from hell, we love you. Hello. Okay. So
let's go a bit more in the processes. We discussed earlier, if we find, and this is, I think, a constant, that there are misunderstandings between those separate disciplines we have there. And in a development project, you need to build cross-functional teams if we talk about Scrum and Agility. Isn't there a lot of overhead in communication you need right now? Aren't you then less productive?
Yes and no. Depends on how you look at that. The more people are involved and the more communication you're going to need. It's actually important and difficult at the same time to make that communication efficient and say, okay, let's come up with like the minimum amount of discussions that we actually need. But as soon as somebody on the team doesn't really know why he's doing something, what's the purpose of what I'm doing? There has been like media coverage about so-called bullshit jobs recently, where people just do things because they are told to do things. They have no clue why they do that, and in the bigger picture it's actually completely pointless. And a lot of time is wasted in development if you're not aligned. So when I build a proof of concept together with one of my business partners, and we have 2 days, we will actually spend the first day discussing. Only discussing. And then we will have reached, hopefully, a consensus about how we need to do things and how we're going to tackle that. And then the second day, we're going to build a prototype. And I think that's a
One question in between. Do you play that back to the customer to get that approved?
No, because it's a prototype or a proof of concept. Basically, it's when we say, okay, we think you could do it like that, sort of, and we can sit back and we can build a prototype and showcase that so that you can actually experience the thing.
So the evaluation is later?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And I think it's a pretty healthy ratio, sort of 50% of talking and then maybe 50% or even less of coding. And if you look at any statistics out there, you're not, the average developer is not doing more like than maybe 30% of coding. A lot of time may be wasted in meetings that may or may not be to the point, it may not make sense. So if you talk about, well, isn't like having a focused discussion on the development topic, that's probably going to be more productive than a generic meeting.
Right. But are you then part, you and your partner in that term, are you then part of the developing team as well? Because you need to, you know, accompany the project as well? Or is it just a briefing you give the team?
This is where it gets kind of sales pitchy, because the way we work...
No, we're out of time, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We are doing know-how transfer. So basically, we try to bring in ideas and show how things could be done, and then we try to empower and enable the teams to do the things, and then we let them do them, and then we get back and look at what they've done and sort of take iterations and cycles where needed. That sometimes makes you a little unhappy because you look at that and say, oh, that's not what I think you should have done, but there's progress, so, you know, that's...
And I have to trust you next week as well.
To answer the question, we are technically not part of the team, right, but sort of we work with the team, so it's difficult to draw the line.
But it's sort of a project definition layer above the team, isn't it? No? Don't want to have that in structures. Okay, it's your wisdom. Let's go to the last point. We only have 4 minutes to go.
Okay.
The relationship between you as providers of services towards your clients could be as tight as possible if you would host services at their place, in their environment, very close to the marketing departments, for example. How is that with content marketing? Is that an idea to do or not?
So yeah, well, I think your question is pretty much going in the direction of whether you should outsource the services, whether you should make decisions about content marketing internally or externally, and usually what happens is that in the beginning there's a lot of expectation matching going on. Because internally there might be totally different expectations of what you can actually reach, how you can reach it, and so that there are the workshops, and in those workshops sometimes spent very unproductively. So there are huge discussions, it's going back and forth, and sometimes it gets quite emotional actually. And at the end of such a discussion, you reach the point, okay, let's focus on the basics. Okay, we need reach, right? So that's the yardstick we're measuring all our initiatives with, right? And if that's not contributing to reach, then let's not discuss it. So we really get down to basics. And then sort of we have a missionary function of preaching that reach all the time, and then in the end, if it works quite well, then the customer will become the missionary of the client, of the user, and of the reach, and we will work for them. But it really does depend on the type of organization. If you talk about a pure online player, like, for example, About You, then all the right people are sitting at the table from the beginning, developing the website, developing the UX. There's an SEO sitting at the table, or a person responsible for it. They are in the Scrum team, and right from the beginning they have sort of like a skyrocketing development, and it does happen, but it just doesn't happen enough. Mm-hmm.
Last two contributions. Jens, you told us in preliminary that you are going to host more teams at your clients. This is really good, working good for you, because you need to be in touch with the marketers to find stories, to build content, and it's not only about doing technical tweaks to the website.
Yeah, exactly. Also for me, if SEO is important for you, it's not for everyone important. because if they're now searching for your things, then you don't need it. Then it's part of the core development of the web page. For the content part, for the information architecture, UX, and for the technical things. And then you have to make it in-house, and that's the reason why we, for our client, help them to build their teams in-house. That's really important, because from outside, the developers and the editors are the ways too long for to go fast.
For a fast exchange.
But I have one small thing.
Small thing. Yes.
Small thing. In 2010, I was at the T-Online and built the SEO team, and we have the problem that we was part of the marketing, and the marketing is one C-level thing, and the technical one the other C-level. Then you have to go the whole way up and down, also the hell of communication. You know, the hell of communication. And then there's a question why we are so slow. And say, yeah, okay, we make requirements and we get no answer. And then, okay, maybe it's good if we go directly to the technical guys without the, and sit together with them. So that's a cool idea. I like it, but before I'm not, they had a door, you need your own key card, so I have no chance to go in. So we go in, and then we sit together, and then they say, okay, we had a problem because the editor team, the marketing, etc., every one of them make requirements, and they have the list, and then they program without asking why they program. And the list was so long that normally they need 2 years for a requirement to develop. And then they, after the 2 years, we go to the employee who makes the requirement, and the employee isn't there because he's gone. And then they delete the code because they have no one to deliver. You say, okay, that's the problem if you have no meetings. You can code more, but you code a lot of things that you can delete.
Okay. I understand it. Did you lock the door from inside when you were there, that no one could escape?
We changed it after then. We have a lot of friends together, and it was cool for the whole company because it was totally stupid before.
It's a good idea. I think coders and marketers should go for a beer first before the project. Last final words from Maria. If the next client from hell comes to you and says, "Come to our company for 2 days, and you'll get to know how we work and what our business goals are, and then you can make a better website," would you do it?
As a person in general, I will tell them honestly that I will listen to their requirements. We will talk within 2 days. We will have meetings for the whole day via Skype, no matter, where they're from, whether they're from Serbia or some other country. And then it will take some time, 2 to 3 days, just to see what they wrote down and what we're talking about. And then I will get the feedback to them, what I think. And why wouldn't I try? Maybe with for example, you're creating the project, and during that project, the client becomes the client from hell. That's the worst. Not from the very start, but then again, it's all about the talk. It's all about, we have to have a manners in terms of talking with each other, and we have to respect more each other as ITs in this job. So it's all about the people, again, collaboration, and I will give them a chance just to hear them, and then we will figure it out later on.
That's the perfect final words. I think we'll all give us a chance tonight. So coders, look for a marketer and take him to the bar and drink a beer together. And the other way around, of course. Designers also, and business owners also. So that's a perfect setup. I think we can thank this panel, and I wish you a nice rest of Webinale.